Hey everyone. Today we're going to be speaking with Dallimore. She's the head of North America mid-market sales over at Udemy, and we're going to be covering topics such as how the landscape of tech sales is shifting in the world of AI, using conversational intelligence to analyze sales strategies and monitor critical business initiatives, and opportunities for consolidating around customer conversations in your tech stack. I know Kara to be a terrific sales coach, both from my own experience and from speaking to some of the reps that have been on her teams in the past. Let's go ahead and jump in. Kara, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking all things revenue. To kick things off, I'd love for you to tell our listeners just a little bit more about your role and your team over at Udemy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here. So Udemy, if you're not familiar, we're an online on-demand learning platform. We offer courses across various topics like business skills, soft skills, technology, and professional development and personal development. Our B2B go-to-market teams, which is where I sit, we focus on selling access to our platform to businesses across the globe. Primarily, I'm in North America. So I focus on companies that are in the US and Canada with an employee size of between 1,000 and 5,000 employees. We typically partner with learning and development teams, human resources, and business lines. We have a land and expand motion. So our AEs are responsible for capturing new logos, as well as generating new revenue from our existing customer base. We work very closely with our talented teams of lead generators, customer success, and renewals teams in our go-to-market function.
Interesting. And how would you say combining those two functions, both pre-sales and post-sales, affects your sales team? A lot of the revenue teams that I speak to will delineate between those two functions.
Sure. Yeah, I've worked at a number of companies that have separated out those functions by virtue of the business had grown to a point where they needed to do that. And so I see there's certainly benefits in both models. Typically, you may find that sellers may gravitate more towards a hunting mentality or to a farming mentality. So it is hard to find that good hybrid. I think that we're doing a really great job here at Udemy. But yeah, there's certainly pros and cons for both models.
A lot of these sales leaders that I talk to want to have their AEs more focused on prospecting and outbound nowadays.
Yeah.
Given your AEs are focused on both pre-sales and post-sales, and you mentioned you have that lead gen team, how do you balance that out within your account executive team?
We try to keep things really simple here. Our AEs are responsible for building pipeline and closing pipeline. Building pipeline both with prospects, new business, new logos, and building pipeline with our existing customer base. So we have a strong outbound motion that focuses on either prospects or customers. And I said we've got a really great, we call them account development reps, or SDR organization, that are mapped to our AEs to help us multi-thread and identify new use cases within our existing customer base that we didn't have access to previously. We have three major forms that we generate leads from, or sources, marketing, XDR, and AE generated pipeline. So we absolutely do our own prospecting.
How does the prospecting differ from your perspective from the account development reps to the account executives? Is there a difference in the quality of the leads that have been generated, and how does that motion look different?
Yeah, I think I probably more separate it from new logos and existing customers. Existing customers, the AEs have got that existing relationship champions. And so the pipeline that we are able to generate with those trusted customers is typically going to close at a higher rate than our new business.
I'm very curious about hearing the perspective on sales tooling from leaders like yourself. What direction is your sales tech stack heading towards? Is there a certain tool or aspect of that stack that is most vital to you currently?
For me, absolutely there is. We have a really robust go-to-market tech stack. We work with some wonderful partners. The most vital element of the tech stack for me is probably our conversational intelligence tool. This gives me the opportunity to analyze what makes our strongest sellers successful and to monitor the adoption of our critical business initiatives. Essentially, that'll help our sellers do their jobs faster. A lot of our tech stack partners have launched AI features, changing the way that we research and engage with customers and prospects. But for me, it's the conversational intelligence tool? Am I able to see what our great sellers are doing, identify repeatable processes, and then scale that across my org?
When it comes to your conversational intelligence tools, are you primarily leveraging them to increase your current conversion rates within your pipeline? A lot of the sales leaders I talk to are very ultra focused on how do I increase that top of funnel pipeline generation. Whereas I think conversational intelligence tools have largely been around how can we improve our reps' performance within the current pipeline.
For this particular tool, absolutely, it's about increasing win rates and identifying what tactics and motions go towards having a higher win rate across the AEs. Absolutely. From a prospecting perspective, that's a completely different tool that we have. We monitor that on a very regular basis as well. But where I'm focused is how do we convert the opportunities that we have in pipeline faster and more often?
Mm-hmm. And what do you look for when you're listening to a call from one of your account executives? What are the primary areas that you find yourself coaching on typically?
Discovery. Everybody still coaches on discovery. Are we positioning our solution in the right way? Have we identified a big enough business problem that's going to warrant a significant investment from those prospects or customers? And so it's about the general sales motion is discovery, solution design. Have they built and identified a really strong champion? Are we doing the tactics that we know work, such as multi-threading, scheduling the next call before we leave the call, creating mutual action plans, basic things like that?
Yeah, it was the first bit of advice that I got from you was, hey, you haven't booked a follow-up call yet. And I remember at that point, I was like, oh, Kara really could add some value to our own sales process here as well.
Yeah. And now we always have a call on the calendar, Corey.
Yeah, exactly. And when you think about discovery, what separates your top reps and the middle of the pack reps?
Yeah.
What do they do differently in discovery? What makes them unique and really strong at discovery?
They conduct discovery on the business, not the feature or product that we're trying to sell. So they are spending a long time, AI is helping, but they're spending a long time really understanding how their prospect makes money, what their challenges are, who their competitors are, what their business priorities are, what their CEO is saying, and doing all of that upfront research to enter into those conversations as more of an expert in the business rather than just asking questions back and forth. They're going in with a point of view. The best sellers essentially identify a business problem and link that back to a solution that we can help them solve.
For account executives that are trying to up-level themselves when it comes to their discovery skills, what tactics do you recommend they employ? Obviously, there's the overarching, hey, you really need to understand the business, but tactically, how do you recommend that they get better at asking those types of questions?
You've got to understand how your prospect does business, how they make money, and then go into it with a point of view, but be able to pivot if the conversation takes you there. I think the biggest thing that sellers, if they're trying to up-level their discovery, need to work on is active listening skills and not having a script or a laundry list of questions that they're going to go in and just make sure that you get all of those answered. You've really got to go with where the prospect is taking you and make sure that you're asking the deeper level questions to get you to either the business metric that you're trying to impact and what the root cause of that business metric or the issue that they're trying to solve. Be adaptable, but go in with a point of view as well.
What role does conversational intelligence play in up-leveling the discovery of your reps? Do you have your reps listening to a certain number of calls per week? What does that look like at Udemy?
We are about to start monitoring that metric more heavily. We haven't done in the past. We've relied on our managers and myself. We've given ourselves KPIs on the amount of calls that we're going to listen to across all of our AE and the amount of deals that we're going to co-sell on each quarter. But certainly conversational intelligence for us, we're looking at their discovery and we're coaching them in that moment. But we are, as the next step 2.0, going to be encouraging our AEs to listen to other folks' calls.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's something that I've seen a lot of different tech sales teams start doing. They were actually imposing a quota on our team for how many calls and minutes of calls they're listening to per week. I want to, again, transition the topic a little bit here to just how would you say the landscape of tech sales has changed over the last 2 to 5 years? Are there any dramatic shifts that you've noticed?
Many. I think I could narrow it down to two. The big thing that everyone's talking about right now is AI, right? But the other thing that businesses are thinking about is consolidation. And companies are considering whether they need multiple platforms or if they can get better efficiencies by using a single go-to-market tool. So I think we'll see a lot of companies move towards consolidation in the near future. In my opinion, I think that's great, but it also comes with risk that you need to be aware of. Is there a single platform out there that meets the needs of all of the go-to-market teams? Prospecting, forecasting, conversational. Is there one platform that is the best at all of those things? So I think people need to go in it with eyes wide open. So I do think we'll see consolidation in the near future. Whether that will be around to stay, I'm not sure. And with AI, we're seeing that play out in real time, right? I think the best go-to-market teams will be the ones who are able to use AI to help them with better lead scoring, better personalized outreach that doesn't look like an AI bot wrote it, forecasting, predictive analysis, competitor analysis, and things like that.
Coming from Rippling, consolidation absolutely resonates with me here. For Rippling, there was a lot of consolidation around the employee record. Basically, how can we leverage the employee data that we have in order to offer unified business systems that HR managers, founders can all leverage so that your systems talk to one another? Now, when it comes to go to market, historically that's always been the CRM is the unifying platform, the consolidation opportunity. Do you think that's changed at all over the last 2 to 5 years, in which there's different opportunities for consolidation? I know Gong, Outreach, they all have opportunities to build additional tooling. I'm curious if where you see the opportunities for consolidation and what is that system of record or nexus that they can really consolidate tools around.
Yeah. And I used Rippling in a previous company, great tool. So in that case, one platform, it was awesome. I think that we'll always need the CRM to be the source of truth. I don't think that there are CRMs that have the additional features that we have come to rely on, such as conversational intelligence, really detailed forecasting and analytics, and prospecting outbound. I think that you'd still need, say, for example, a HubSpot or a Salesforce, as well as either Outreach or Gong or Apollo or Clary. I think those are the players that go-to-market teams are considering. Should I consolidate those types of functions into one of those players? Or do I just have Gong for calls and I have Clary for forecasting? Those types of conversations are happening now.
Do you think there's a similar data set like the CRM or like employee data that allows for that consolidation to happen? I mean, one of the hypotheses I have there is it's around the customer conversation. If we can track the customer conversation, what is being said by the customer during the initial sale, post sale, as long as you can keep track of everything that's being conversed within the customer, you can build a lot of tooling around that, whether it's engagement, forecasting, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Would you say that's where you see the consolidation happening as well? It's around the customer conversation, or is there another data source that you think is offering that?
That's a huge one, right? What are the customers saying to our SDRs? What are they saying to our AEs? And then post sales, what are they saying to our customer success teams, renewals teams, if you have them? And are those conversations or communications being captured in one single repository? So when you have these disparate teams working on separate tools, that becomes a challenge to be able to capture all of that in one spot.
A lot of the teams I talk to use Outreach and Gong together, which I've always found interesting. Your SDRs will use Outreach, but then once you actually move into the sale, your sales team is using Gong, and typically your post-sale team is also using Gong. Why do you think that is?
I think on both of those tools, and I'm not affiliated with either, but Outreach was created as a prospecting tool, and Gong was created as a conversational intelligence tool. And both of those companies now are trying to capture what Gong calls it revenue intelligence, which is outbound conversation and forecasting. And so I think that companies who have historically used both tools, and we're a part of that cohort, not necessarily those particular tools, but we're part of that cohort. It's because you've had those tools historically built into your tech stack, and it's hard to uncouple those. So Yes, would you get more efficiencies if your SDRs are using 100% of the same platform as your sales folks? I think you would. But I think as your company grows, it becomes more difficult to undo something that is so ingrained in your tech stack.
And on that same note, when it comes to your organization's objectives for the year, in what ways are you leveraging your sales tools to advance some of those objectives?
Yeah. So building pipeline, we use an outbounding tool to help us send automated messages, email, LinkedIn, call data, and so on and so forth. We have a really big focus on getting our reply rates up. Email's really tough. Most sales leaders will attest to that. It's like, how do you capture your audience's attention through email when it may go into a spam folder? They may have received 100 emails. Then you need to start thinking about pivoting back to calling, which is what our businesses are doing, and then social tools like LinkedIn. On the initiative front, this is where we use our conversational intelligence tool. So we track initiatives that we are launching this year. I won't go into too much detail about what they are, but I'll just talk about sales tactics as we touched on earlier. We know that the more calls we have, our win rates triple. And so, again, the tactic that we have is to try to schedule the next call while you have the prospect or customer on that call. Another thing that we're tracking is multi-threading. We know that if we have a certain amount of people attached to a deal, our win rates go up again. So we're tracking multi-threading. Are we asking to bring other people into the evaluation process? And so I'm tracking it on a daily basis. They're tracking it at least on a weekly basis. And they're using that as an opportunity to coach their teams in one-on-ones. So you didn't multi-thread on this deal. Tell me why.
And I know we're coming up on time. I'll leave it with this last question. If you had the power to instantly resolve one issue for your sales team, what would it be?
This is going to be a really short answer. Gaining access to power on every single deal, up leveling.
Okay.
That would be the one thing that I would resolve.
Kara, thank you so much for your time here. This has been great. Again, Kara Dallimore, head of North America MidMarket at Udemy. Kara, thank you so much for your time here.
Thanks, Corey.